The problem was simple. The solution would be difficult. Could a standard truck-type diesel engine be extended to several times its normal horsepower and make obsolete the limits of speed commonly accepted for diesels? The men who had built it knew the engine's record of outstanding power and economy in commercial fields. But what were its full capabilities for speed? That night, in the offices of the Cummins Engine Company of Columbus, Indiana, 3 men stayed late. The engine's performance had opened new avenues for research, and engineers Nev Reiners, Joe Miller, and Don Cummins were eager to begin. They talked of a project that would give every member of the company a sense of challenge and participation, a project with a public deadline that would compress years of research into months of intensive work. Above all, the project would have to test the combined qualities of lightness, maximum power, and speed. In the end, the men agreed on the most grueling test there is, the Indianapolis 500-mile race. Immediately, there was the problem of a rugged diesel competing against high-speed gasoline engines especially designed and developed for the race. But problems are the reason for research. Perhaps the engine could be mounted horizontally to reduce the car's profile and make possible a lower center of gravity needed for the curves. An idea began to take shape. Within a few days, a sketch was developed for the company's executives. They too were excited by the project, but they knew that once committed there could be no turning back, that even then the outcome was a gamble. At last, the car would be made. The entire town was stirred by the announcement. A Columbus-built diesel in the world's fastest race? Word spread like wildfire. Even outlying farms. Enthusiastic of all were the hot rodders with their souped-up jalopies. Indianapolis, diesel race car? Holy cow! Back at the factory, the work began. First, the engine was completely re-examined, right down to the basic diesel principle. During the diesel's intake stroke, the piston travels downward, drawing in air only. Then the intake valve closes, and the piston starts the compression stroke, forcing the air into 1/15 the space it first occupied. Under such great pressure, the air temperature rises to about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. The injector forces diesel fuel into the cylinder, where it is ignited by the hot air rather than by an electrical spark, as in gasoline engines. At the end of the power stroke, the exhaust valve opens and the piston forces the burned gases out of the cylinder. And so the cycle repeats. Intake, compression, power, exhaust. Intake, compression, power, exhaust. Test after test, the engine proved sound. Now the job of modifying it for the race began. In the foundry, one of the first objectives was to reduce the weight of the engine, yet in no way weaken its fundamental design. The engineers were not afraid to be different. Experimental castings were made of light metals not generally used in cylinder blocks, such as magnesium and aluminum. And in the process, new information of value to normal production came to light. A number of these experimental cylinder blocks were then taken into the plant to be built into finished engines. First, the rough castings were milled smooth. Each part was carefully machined with the same quality and precision that goes into every diesel on the line. Dimensions were held to the most rigid engineering standards. Under a powerful microscope, the injector cup spray holes were drilled to the diameter of 65/10,000ths of an inch. The injector itself was constructed to amazingly close tolerances. As the heart of the diesel, each injector must meet the most exacting specifications or be flatly rejected, for the engine's correct operation depends directly on the proper distribution of fuel. When each part had been thoroughly checked, then checked again, the engine was assembled. Here too, regular plant procedure was followed. Except for modifications for the race, the car's engine was to remain basically the same as those produced day in and day out for normal commercial use. At last, the first of the horizontal trial engines was ready. In the meantime, an identical dummy engine had been made of metal and wood. Precious weeks for further development of the real engines were saved by flying the wooden dummy to the Curtiss Craft Company in Los Angeles, California, where the race car's chassis was being built. The bare skeleton of what was to become a high-powered race car was ready and waiting when the dummy engine arrived from Indiana. Now the engine would be set in place and the body built around it. For here again, the designers were not afraid to be different. This was to be a new kind of car with a new kind of shape that incorporated the latest engineering advances. And each step of the assembly was carefully observed by Don Cummins and Freddie Agabation, the man who had been selected to drive it. Mounting the engine on its side was just one of many innovations. Time and again, the same question came to mind. Will it work? Agabation, Cummins, and Frank Curtis, the race car designer, were eager to try radical ideas. One of these was to place both the drive shaft and the differential to the left side of the driver's seat, not under it as in conventional models. This would permit the car to ride lower and hug the road for greater stability. To construct a radically different car in time for the race called for imagination, daring, and above all, speed. The pressure was terrific, but by working day and night, the men of Curtiss Craft rushed the first assembly to completion. Arrangements had already been made to ship the car halfway across the country, this time to the wind tunnel at the University of Wichita in Kansas. For the first time in the history of the Indianapolis race, a car's streamlining would be studied at simulated track speeds. Balance and aerodynamics would be checked not only by instruments, but also by the man who would drive in the actual race. When the car had been taken back to California, design changes based on the tunnel tests were made. Then the finished body was assembled. Piece by piece, the car took on a form of its own, a number, a name, a distinctive identity. There would be nothing like it at Indianapolis. Few would ever know the care and planning and painstaking skill that had gone into the engineering of this car, or how it felt to see an idea grow from penciled lines in a notebook into an intricate machine for speed. For Freddie Agabation, this moment had a personal meaning. Here was the car he would drive in the race. When that time came, the work of the many different people who had contributed to this project would be ended. The car and the man would be on their own. Number 28 then began its journey home, back to the Cummins factory, where trial engines were still being built and tested, torn apart, and built again. A crew of regular Cummins mechanics immediately took the car in hand. Thane Hauser, Mike Fellows, Joe Butler, Bill Daup, each of these men knew what lay ahead. Endless hours of grinding work, nights away from home, mounting tension. Still, each had stepped forward and volunteered for the project, as had others throughout the entire organization. With only 90 days until the qualification runs, the impossible would somehow have to get done. Number 28 was completely dismantled, and the men went over her inch by inch, eliminating excess weight. Even after holes had been drilled to lighten the frame, the truck-type diesel engine would make the car about 1/3 heavier than its competitors, a disadvantage in any race. Then each part was carefully adjusted and the chassis made ready for the final engine, whose aluminum cylinder block was now being poured. The precision of every component part was measured on delicate gauges. Number 28 had to stand up under the worst punishment a car could possibly be given. No detail was too small to be left unchecked. Even then, there was no way of calculating what might happen under the intense pressure of the race. For to enter a completely experimental car at Indianapolis is to take a very long chance. 1,000 things can go wrong. Week after week, the men pushed themselves to the limit, racked their brains to solve each new problem as it arose, continued their craftsmanship even in the face of a deadline, ate sandwiches, slept on benches, then went back to work again. Until at last, the car was ready for trial runs. But first, number 28 was put on display for the people of Columbus, who had already adopted her as their own. With only a few weeks until qualifications, number 28 was rushed to Indianapolis for her first shakedown run. Until now, the car had never moved under her own power. There was no way of knowing how she would perform. At 129 miles per hour, Freddie knew she would handle like a charm. Skimming the track with only 4 inches clearance, banking the curves with near perfect balance, number 28 had a feel of her own. The idea of a horizontal engine was sound, and she had speed. Speed that was further increased by her tunnel-tested design. Number 28's trial run was more than satisfactory, but there was still much work to be done. Handling characteristics would have to be improved, and other detail problems worked out for even greater speeds. The pressure would continue right up to qualification day itself, when each car must take the track alone and race against the clock in an effort to win a starting position in the 500-mile grind. May 17th, the first day of qualifying began. Minute by minute, the excitement mounted, for the warm-ups showed clearly that this would be the fastest field in history. With 70 entries and starting positions for only 33, each driver would have to bear down with everything his car had. At last, the warm-ups were ended, the time trials about to begin. The competition would be fierce. Here were the world's fastest cars with the world's fastest drivers, each determined to win a position in the race. From the first, number 28 attracted the crowd's attention. Although other Cummins diesels had competed at Indianapolis before, here was a completely new kind of car powered by a modified commercial diesel engine, burning a commercial grade of fuel oil. Could she meet the speeds it would take to qualify for the race? Speeds that the experts were predicting would carry on the record-breaking tradition of men like Barney Oldfield, Ralph De Palma, Wilbur Shaw, Louis Meyer, Maury Rose, and Walt Faulkner. From the pagoda, the judges gave the signal, and the first car started its 4 timed laps around the track. By late afternoon, every qualifying record had been shattered. There had never been anything like it at Indianapolis before. And now, number 28's turn was coming up. Suddenly, the long months of research and toil and anxiety were a part of the past. All that mattered was what Freddie and number 28 would do in the few minutes that lay ahead. There was one lap to get up speed and feed the car into the straightaway where the timer's watches were ready to start ticking. Then, this was it. Freddie poured it on, giving her all the speed the car could take and still hold the track. First lap at a record-smashing 139.104 miles per hour. The first car ever to average over 139 for a full lap, and she was a diesel. But there were still 3 laps to go. Lap number 2 at 138.206. The performance was fantastic, but already the speed was taking its toll. Tires were being punished as never before. The right front tire was grinding to shreds on the curves. .931. Could the tire last out the one lap that remained? Fans had called Freddie half man, half race car, and now he proved it. With the tread tearing loose, he kept his foot on the floor. Qualifying record of 138.01 miles per hour. Number 28 had proved that a truck-type diesel engine can compete against the most highly developed gasoline racing engines on their own terms and break their records. The headlines would give the statistics, telling how a new and different diesel race car, driven by Freddie Agabation, had outperformed all others to set new qualifying records and win the coveted pole position in the Memorial Day race. But there would be still another story behind those headlines. The story of a driver who had staked everything on his car, and it had come through. '" Indianapolis, May 30th, 4 a.m. The crowd that has waited all night for the gates to open floods into the parking area in the center of the track. "5 a.m. Lines of cars stretch back from the track for miles. Traffic can move in only one direction. 6 a.m. Cars still scramble to get in. 6:30. The garage area hums with activity. 33 crews make careful checks and last-minute preparations. Now there is little more that can be done. "7 a.m. The cars are rolled to the pits. 3 hours remain until the start of the 36th Indianapolis race. The spectacle of Indianapolis is in full swing. Homemade observation towers are quickly assembled. The carnival spirit takes over. More and more people pour in. By 10 o'clock, there will be 200,000 on hand. "9 a.m. The pit is placed in perfect order. The final touches are given. Number 28's crew is about ready. 9:30. Every car is set to go. "9:35. In a few minutes, the cars and drivers will be sent to the starting line. The cars are rolled onto the track to line up in position. "9:45. In a moment, balloons will go up and the pace lap begin. "9:52. Everything is ready. Over the loudspeakers, the order is given. Gentlemen, start your engines! Starters, good luck, and God be with you! 9:55. The blue pace car moves out. The big event is underway. Three wide and 11 deep, the 33 drivers hold position behind the pace car for one slow turn around the track. Here, the best drivers in the business. Johnny Parsons, Bill Schindler, Chet Miller, Tony Bettenhausen, Alberto Ascari from Italy, Bill Vukovic, Troy Ruttman, name but a few. With over $200,000 in prizes, they will shoot the works. Now they're in the north turn, picking up speed for the straightaway. The pace car starts to pull off the track. The race is on. On the first turn, the cars jammed together in a cloud of dust. Gradually, the field breaks open. McGrath is off and running with the pack hot at his heels. Carefully calculated his race in advance. Some go for the lead at the outset, others lie back to make their bids later on. Freddie is ninth, but close behind the leaders. He's saving rubber on the curves according to plan. There is still a long way to go. Laps. Ruttman and Vukovic are dueling for the lead. Freddie has moved up to sixth. "20 laps. 50 miles are gone. Old records are falling. 28 is in fifth. "34 laps. Number 55 drops out. "40 laps. The pace is beginning to tell. Cars are already coming in for tires and fuel. Number 28 is running smoothly, now in fourth position, eating up the most grueling miles a car can take. "47 laps. It's time for a tire change. As Freddie slows for the pits, the crew stands ready to go into action. Over many weeks, they have drilled for this moment. Not a second can be lost. Every motion must count. In 1 minute and 15 seconds, Freddie is back on the track, picking up speed. "55 laps. Having dropped back during the pit stop, number 28 now begins to move up again. Gradually, the gap is closing. 60 laps. Linden, Ball, Ascari, Miller, Scott have all dropped out. 20 laps. Vukovic hangs on to his blistering lead. Ruttman is right behind. Agabation is on the move. But something is wrong. Number 28 is coming in. The turbocharger is clogged with dust and rubber particles. There has been no mechanical failure, but the clogging of the turbocharger is starving the engine for air. Number 28 might still finish the race, but it would have to be at reduced speeds. The decision must be made. The car is driven from the track. Out on the track, 26 and 98 will fight it out lap after lap until Vukovic's steering arm snaps and Troy Ruttman goes on to win the trophy. But for number 28, the day is over.